everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm going to talk about my career in sustainable construction and kind of how I got to where I am. Um, so just a little bit of a background context. Sustainability, the term has a lot of different definitions. For me in my work, it really means sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So really, being mindful of our resources that we're using and make sure that there is still adequate resources for future generations. So I went to UC Irvine for engineering. My degree's in civil engineering with a focus on structures, which is really buildings and bridges. I had always been fascinated with buildings and architecture when I was little. Thought I wanted to be an architect for a bit, but talking to a family friend who was an engineer, I realized, I'm much better at math than didn't really consider myself a super creative person. And, architects design amazing, beautiful buildings, but engineers really figure out how to actually build them. And so that really sparked my interest. So I went to school there, graduated in 2010. But while I was in college, there were a few kind of general ed courses that I had to take, and one of them was a global studies class. So my senior year, I ended up taking a sustainability class taught by this professor who has a TEDx talk, and it was really fascinating. He worked with the United Nations peacekeepers and would go in and do environmental assessments in post-conflict areas. So places like northern Pakistan, Sierra Leone, and he would come up with recommendations of what types of environmental issues they needed to address or solve to help the community kind of get back on its feet. And it really opened my eyes to the much bigger picture of sustainability and how many different things play into that, and topics like social justice. Honestly, if I had discovered this class before senior year, I might have changed my major, but I was too close to graduating at that point. So my first job out of college, and I'm still working at the same place, it's called Hathaway Dinwiddie Construction. It's a construction company based in California. And even though my degree's in engineering, partially I graduated in 2010, which was still the recession at the time. And I applied to a lot of different places. So I was sort of just happy to have a job. But construction is a really common and appropriate outlet for engineering majors, because we really understand how the building is designed, how to read the plans in order to build the building. So it gives you a really good foundational knowledge. I started out as an intern for a couple of months, but luckily there was a project getting started right when I got hired. And so I was able to help them kind of get the project going during my internship, and then got hired full-time by October of that year. And worked on a bunch of different projects. I'll walk you through a couple of the cool buildings that I've worked on. We do all commercial, so we don't do residential, just office buildings, school buildings, museums, things like that. This picture you can see here, I work for a really special company. We've been around for over 100 years. One of our kind of things is we do a lot of legacy projects, we call them. So the 3 tallest buildings in San Francisco, and actually there's a 4th that I'll show you later, were all built by my company. So Transamerica Pyramid is one of those. We built that in the 70s. So the first project I worked on was in Glendale. It's actually for Disney. So this is an office campus for them. There were 2 buildings and a parking structure. It's kind of hard to see, but the glass actually had Disney characters etched into it. And my role was as a project engineer, you handle things called RFIs, which are requests for information, and submittals. So every product that you use on a building project, you have to submit it to the architects and engineers to verify that it's the correct materials. So there's a lot of documentation that goes along with that. RFIs are, if there's questions, the plans aren't always 100% clear. You're out in the field trying to figure out how to build something. We submit formal questions to the design team for clarifications and to make sure that we're doing things correctly. I learned a ton. I worked on this for about 2 years, start to finish. And, my biggest advice is ask questions. People you're working with want to help you, ask questions. We have a lot of subcontractors. We manage the construction work and we hire out all of the people who do the actual labor. And, they are all experts in their specific fields. They like to talk about what they're experts in. So, making sure that I was walking the job site every day and not getting stuck in the office for too long, asking people what they were doing, how this works, how this goes together. Really learned a lot. I tried to join meetings, as many meetings as I could, to just learn about every aspect of it. Your growth really depends on your initiative. The next couple projects I worked on were in Orange County. These were 20-story high-rises, office buildings, totally different style of construction from the previous building, which was all concrete. These were steel, and again, high-rises is a whole different game. Sometimes in construction, we can work long hours, but no 2 days are the same, and you kind of go through cycles with this, depending on how the schedule is going. You'll have short days, easier days where you're just kind of getting to walk around and, hang out with your coworkers a little bit more. And then other times you're on a really hard deadline, and sometimes put in a lot of hours. Construction tends to have a lot of commuting because every year or 2 years you're going on to the next project. So, when I, being out of the LA office, I was in Glendale, and then I went to Newport Beach for a year and a half. So there is a bit of commuting that does happen. We only work in California. I know there's other contractors that are, across the country. People might move to different states sometimes for projects, depending. So it really depends on your company, the types of projects you work on. After the high rises, I was promoted to a project manager. So now I was overseeing not just the documentation, but all of the billings and the contracts. And so I had a project at Cal State Northridge, and this was an interiors project. So again, something slightly different from what I had done before. This was a really cool resource for students. So if you are looking for a college to go to, CSUN has this really great thing called a wellness center. Provides stress management, and they have massages and meditation training and some really cool resources to make sure that students are managing their stress and staying on top of everything. And then my next project, again, slightly different, and this is my favorite thing about construction, is no two projects are the same. This was originally a Ford Motor Factory in the Arts District in downtown LA. It was purchased by a developer and completely renovated from a historical standpoint. So all those factory windows were restored. You can see some of the old skylight infrastructure, and then we added a parking structure, and it was actually sold to Warner Music. So Warner Music now owns the building and has recording studios and things in it. So while I was working on all these projects, still thinking back to the sustainability class I took in college, most of our projects go for LEED certification, which is Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design. And so I started learning about LEED. I took a certification. So this is a LEED accredited professional for building design and construction. Our company had an internal green team, so volunteers that kind of helped manage our green projects. But the market for green buildings was just growing and growing and growing. And so I took on more responsibility, kind of helping train new project teams while I was a project manager. Started attending the local USGC chapter events, started going to conferences, and realized that this was really my passion and what I really wanted to do. And so I actually was talking to my boss and my mentors and decided to create my own job. We did not have anyone doing full-time sustainability in our company, and there were other other similar companies out there that did have this role. So that was kind of what I modeled it after, but I wrote a job description and I wrote a job proposal and I submitted it. It did take a while to fully get approved by corporate, but now I've been doing sustainability full-time for 4 years. And so a lot of what my job is helping out all of our green project teams, training the teams on how to document things properly in order to get certified. This is an example of the scorecard, so you can kind of see the different subjects that they're working on. And then I also help out our marketing team to explain our sustainability strategy and kind of our corporate side of things. Another thing I started doing was going to conferences and speaking at conferences, which was a skill that I didn't know I had. I did not enjoy public speaking growing up, even in college, was not a fan. But once I started having the opportunity to talk about projects that I was really passionate about, it came a lot easier. So I've been really involved with conferences and the networking and meeting colleagues and at those events that now I work with on projects. That's been probably my favorite part of my whole job. And then the last project that I worked on that I just finished up is in Santa Monica. It is a living building, which I don't have time to get into right now, but really, really cool building certification program. Net zero energy, all the power it needs is generated with solar panels on the building, collecting rainwater for drinking. We actually vetted all of the materials, did research on the ingredients to eliminate toxic ones. It's a fascinating project. Hopefully it'll open up post-COVID and the public will actually be able to tour it. So keep your eye on that. And with that, Q&A, here's just a couple more cool projects that my company's worked on: Salesforce Tower, the Getty Center, and the upcoming Lucas Museum.
All right, thank you so much, Jessie. That was really interesting. I'll probably end up poking you for some questions later too.
Sure.
I believe, Jessie, your email is on the schedule, so everyone should have that if you're open for people to be shooting you an email if they have additional questions.
Absolutely.
Awesome.